On today's episode of The Loud Quiet, Rick's reunion reflections and Clancy's FOMO, Jomo, or Romo.
Hey, everybody, welcome to The Loud Quiet. For those that are watching, and soon for those of you that are listening, you'll be able to see this is going to be a little different episode today. Clancy and I are going to record our portions separately today as my Duke 30th reunion is coming up and wanted to talk about that. And for those of you, this is a stage of life that we got a lot of milestone moments. And one of those that tends to sneak up on us are these reunions, maybe they high school, be they college, be the other kind of reunions that you go back to. And so if you've had some thoughts about a reunion either that you went to or a reunion that's coming up in your mind, this episode's going to be for you. We'll share our perspectives, both mine and then Clancy's separately here. So yeah, got my Duke 30th reunion coming up, and perhaps the first feeling that comes to mind is, 30th? Someone who would be going to their 30th college reunion when I thought about them when I was a kid, that'd be like Archie Bunker. It's these images of these incredibly old people, and well, I don't feel that way. But I am incredibly excited about this. I've got some absolute nostalgia about it. There's a little bit of disappointment with it, and honestly, there's a little bit of insecurity around it as well. I'm very much looking forward to specifically getting together with three guys who were a special part of my college experience. It is amazing what happens when you have great college friends and how even if you aren't interacting daily, weekly, monthly, or there have been times that we haven't talked for a long time, and yet the moment that you step in that room together, you realize it starts just like it was before. Yes, we look different, we have different experiences, but there's something about that closeness that just never seems to fade. There's the excitement of coming back to campus. It's changed so much, and anybody who's gone back to any place, whether it's home, whether it's school, things change, and campus has changed. When I stand outside of, and Duke, the fraternities were in the dorms, so outside of the dorm where my fraternity was housed, I can visualize the tractor pull, yeah? Tractor pull event that we did outside of the fraternity. I can visualize the volleyball games that were there. I can visualize sitting on these big benches that we had and just sharing life with people. I also remember some of the happy, the sads. There's just something special about being in that physical place with everyone to be able to reminisce about life at a time that was so impactful. I don't remember college necessarily being totally lighthearted, right? There was a lot of work involved. There was a lot of pressure to find out what was next in life and all of that. But if you think back to what that was like as compared to adulting, there are some really meaningful and shaping moments. I am very excited. I'm also a little disappointed because we had a change of plans. One of the things that I love about Clancy is I love when she comes with me on things. I love when she is able to be a part of our travels. She's now working in the business together. We share life together. And now in the empty nest, we have this incredible freedom, as we've talked about, to be able to share life together even more so because it is just us. And months ago, when we were originally planning this out, our spouses were going to be involved. And then one by one, like one spouse wasn't able to go, and then another spouse a week or so ago wasn't able to go, and then a couple days ago, the last spouse said, just wasn't able to go. And all these are for great reasons. There's no bitterness there. These are just sometimes you just can't make schedules work. Well, that kind of put Clancy in a weird position, right? It wouldn't bother me, but thinking of what it'd be from her experience, here's the four of us doing all the reminiscing that I was describing, and she's enjoying the stories and being a good sport. It became clear it wasn't the right weekend to make it a couples thing. This is going to end up being kind of a guys thing. And I'm disappointed for the reasons that I told you. I'm also going to tell you another reason that I'm disappointed. I wanted to show her off. I really like Clancy. Of course, right? I love her, but I really like her. And I kind of wanted to show her off. Maybe there's some folks that don't know her quite as well as others. And it'd be nice to have her on my arm or with me at the reunion. As vain as it is, a lot of reunion is going back and kind of just telling your story and kind of hoping that you can puff your chest out a little bit. And I know that's vain. And I know that perhaps that isn't exactly the right way to think about that. Most of it is simply desiring to see all of my friends and be back there with my friends. But especially with the change to podcasting, especially with the career growth and the success of our kids and all that goes into that, there's a little bit of, all right, life has gone pretty well for the last 3 decades, and I want to tell that story. Not in a comparison that I hope that I'm better than someone. That's not what I mean. But I got things pretty good, and I want to be able to show that off. And Clancy is a key part of I got things pretty good, and I'm going to miss having her there. I've had things pretty good for 30 years, right? I'm excited about what life has become. I've evolved. I've changed. We all have evolved and changed. But there was a text on a larger group. There's kind of two text message groups. One's that smaller group that I was describing, then a larger group of some of my fraternity brothers. And there was a text that highlighted something that had been simmering in the back of my mind about a reunion, but it hadn't really been brought to the forefront quite like this text did. And there was no malice, there was no ill intent in the text. It just was. And I got to set up a little story here. My senior year of college, I brought in a band for the last day of classes. It was something that I wanted. It was a band that I'd loved, and the fraternity had even kind of laughed about how much I enjoyed this band. The band's name was Jacko Pierce, to the point that they started calling me Ricko Pierce. And that's fine. I embraced it. There was plenty of other music that all of us loved, so brought them in. And that's one of the last memories that I will have of being a student on campus. Well, I was talking about a playlist that we used to play at our Friday night kegs that we'd have at the fraternity. And I asked if anybody still happened to have that old cassette, yes, cassette that we would play each Friday night. And someone said, I don't think Jacko Pierce is on there. And it's funny. That is a funny thing to read. But it reminded me that there's a lot of folks that are going to be there that only know Rick 30 years ago. They don't know the Rick that has evolved into Rick now. And there's a lot of growth that I have gone through. There are a lot of things that I wasn't great about in college. I had a lot of insecurities, and I was too immature to realize that we're all just humans. We're all screwed up in all of our own unique different ways. I was definitely too rigid, but I've gotten more of my dad in me as I've aged and more of that laid back aspect, and finding a way to balance being driven and disciplined with just roll with it, and it's fine. I didn't have a lot of that, just roll with it and it's fine. But that text made me think, am I going to be walking into a situation where people think of me as Rick, who was 22, 23, without realizing and appreciating the growth that has happened? Will that make me approach introductions and reintroductions and greetings that haven't happened with people for 30 years differently? Part of even recording this now is that I'm setting myself up to not be that way. It is something that sits in the back of my mind that I'm not that guy. And I don't want them to think that I'm that guy. I also don't want to spend a whole lot of time this weekend convincing others of who I am, because honestly, I don't care. And that's the beauty of being in your 50s is I don't really care. So I'm excited about this. There's some disappointment and there's some insecurity going into it. But honestly, I can't wait to get on that plane tomorrow. I'm sad that I'll be flying solo, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Hey guys. So you'll see when you watch this, we are recording from two different places. I was supposed to be with Rick at his 30th college reunion, but in the end, some things just changed. The wives that were coming decided not to come, and so it just ended up being a boys' weekend instead of me tagging along. I am flying out what will be tomorrow, or what is tomorrow, to meet him in Chicago for a business thing that we are doing on Monday. So I wanted to talk a little bit about FOMO, Jomo, And I just saw a new one called Romo, which I had not seen before. Do I have FOMO? Fear of missing out, for those of you who don't know what that is. On this one, not so much. I was looking forward to it. I love the guys, Rick's guy friends that he's really stayed close with over the past 30 years from college. They were in our weddings. We all met together one weekend. None of us were even engaged yet, but everyone is with those girls and married to those girls now. So our families have stayed in touch. We all have kids that are the similar age. So it's nice to get together with them. And like I said, the guys are great guys, just great families. So I would have enjoyed seeing those guys and their wives. But unfortunately, things just happened. And so everyone ended up canceling. And I mean, last minute cancel. It was Wednesday and I was going up to the office to work with Rick. And he said, hey, the girls aren't coming after all. So he was like, do you still want to go? And in my head, I was like, no, just make this a guys' weekend. I don't really need to go to the parties and small talk with everyone. I enjoy that, but leading up to this trip, and this is where the Romo, which is what I just discovered today, how weird that I was just looking through Instagram and saw that on something, which that one I never heard of, which is relief of missing out. I was starting to feel a little stressed about the amount of travel that we are about to do, the back-to-back travel that we are about to do. I was just feeling the pressure of, okay, I have to pack for Austin because we were tacking on an Austin portion to this trip before, which in the end ended up just getting canceled. So I had to pack for Austin, for Durham, and then for Chicago, which those three weather patterns are completely different. And the attire at all three places are completely different. So I was starting to feel a little bit of pressure. Just, you're going back to your husband's 30th college reunion. Of course, you want to feel good about yourself. And he wants to show off, oh, this is my wife, so you do. You want to look nice. You want to dress the part of just feeling comfortable and looking good. I even went to a couple places because I was like, okay, if I can find a cute new outfit, which I didn't need, but sometimes that gives me a little pick me up to say, okay, great. Now I'm excited. I have something new to wear. I could not find any. When I mean, it's a lot for me to go into a store and not find something. So I was just feeling a little bit of the stress and pressure to just get packed, for one thing. So I was a little bit relieved of missing out on this one when he told me, you don't have to go. And it wasn't like you don't have to go. He still wanted me to go. But he felt bad because I was going to be alone some of the time while they were playing golf and doing, a couple of other things. So, and if you know Durham, there's really not a ton to do there. So I kind of was like, okay to sit this one out. It was funny though, we talked at dinner the night before he left, and I said, I am glad that we are totally solid. There's no cracks in our relationship, at this point, because this could be a situation that you're sending your husband and his frat brothers back to their college scene with people that some I know, some I don't. We've all heard stories about things that happen. And so I just told him, I said, if I was jealous or if I was concerned about sending you into this environment of parties and alcohol and girls that you haven't seen in a while. I could see that being a concern for some people. I do not feel that way at all. So, and I am very thankful that I don't have those feelings. So that's the Romo and the FOMO part. The Jomo, if you don't know, is joy of missing out. Do I feel joyous that I didn't get to go? No. Did I get a lot of things done around here that I'm happy that I got done? Yeah. I mean, I was working on Friday doing some of the things that needed to get done for our business and podcasts, and I was texting him, a few things, and then, I said, oh, I forget, you're on vacation, because he's sending me pictures of the beautiful views at Duke, and the trees are all blooming. It's sunny. It's pretty. If you live here, it was rainy and gross. The perfect day, though, for me to get things done that I needed to get done. So did I have joy? No, but I was happy that I got the option and had the time added back in to get some of the things done that had been just, again, weighing on me a little bit. I will say one thing that I was a little joyous about is that, as we've said before, the Final Four is going on. I got to control my TV again. Okay, everyone in this day and age has multiple TVs, but you have probably one room that you really enjoy watching your TV in. So I was just glad that I could catch up on the shows that I wanted to watch, and I just hadn't had time to watch because we've been watching so much basketball. And I'm glad for Rick that he is at Duke, the day after they won and moved on to the Elite Eight. And so that game is tonight. Another thing that I'm getting to do is, once Tanner found out that I was going to be home this weekend, in true college, grad school fashion, he said, oh, Mom, great. Why don't you come down for dinner? Awesome. That means Mom will pay for dinner. And now it's turned into, Tanner and the crew, which I love that group. So yes, I am about to leave here and go down and head down and take them out to dinner. So I love that I'm getting to do that as well. So in the end, it really ended up being a nice gift that I was given of time added back in. So I can't wait to hear all of the stories from Rick. So that's the perspective of my side of the story of the spouse who doesn't go to the reunion. Have you gone with your spouse to reunions? Did you go to the same high school? Maybe you went to the same college. Do you attend your reunions together? That would be fun if you ran around in the same circles. So drop us a line on the Loud Quiet Emptiness Living Facebook group and tell us how you've dealt with those kind of situations.
Well, I am back from the reunion. Certainly was an incredible experience, as I expected. Few thoughts about that, although it's kind of nice to just sit down and take a little breath. Right after the reunion, Clancy and I did something with CX Passport in Chicago that we'll probably talk about at some point. And my goodness, it's exhausting. So it's kind of nice to sit here. It was so good to see old friends. It was an experience that I'd expected to have. This is not going to be one of those of, oh boy, I'm really surprised. No, there is something about deep college friends that the moment that you step into the room with them, the moment that you step on a conversation with them, you go back to 30 years ago. It's a complete reconnection. It's a time capsule back to the past. You laugh. The stories are different. We're talking about our kids. We're talking about where they went to school or what our adult kids are doing. One of our crew, they've got a wedding coming up and they're working on that. And so while the stories may have changed, the relationship and the warmth certainly haven't. We spent most of the weekend together. Now, this shows the difference between being in your 20s and being in your 50s. Each of us retired to our own hotel or lodging for the evening. Nobody was sharing rooms or anything like that. We're all ready for that break to get back to yourself. There was something just chill about it. Yes, we played some golf. We walked around campus. There were some parties. I think the chill part was you didn't have to overplan anything. You really could just sit for an hour or two at a table, have a beer, and just talk. And that's a depth of relationship that can only come, I think, from those kind of college reunion type friends. When we did go to some of the parties on Friday night, I actually had a little bit of a gaffe, but again, it shows the difference between 20 and 50. One of the guys who was one of my fraternity brothers, somebody I should have just recognized on sight, for some reason, I didn't recognize him initially. In retrospect, he kind of looks the same, but he's got a beard kind of like me, and so there were reasons why I might not have recognized him, but I didn't. And so I turned to one of the other guys and just asked, "Hey, who is that?" And he laughs, and in a way that would have embarrassed me in the 20s, calls me out in front of the group. He's like, "That's," and I'm not going to bother with the names here, but that's so and so. And how do you not know him? And they gave me a hard time about it and all that, and I would have felt really uncomfortable about that. I mentioned the insecurity that I talked about back when I was in my college days. Now I'm like, yeah, I forgot. I'm old. I'm tired. We've changed. All right, now let's just keep talking. And I think that maturity is something that's so much different. Walking into that room, I didn't have any of that imposter syndrome or anything like that. We all have our own life journeys that we've been on. I know that's an overused phrase, but those life journeys are exactly who we are, and that's who made us who we are today. And I'm kind of fine with who I am today. Now, just as sure as I said that, there's a story I'll share. I was in line to get coffee, bagel there at the hotel, and there were a couple guys who I didn't know, different class. They were in line behind me, and I heard them talking about the party the night before. And they were saying something about a third person, and I could tell basically that they were kind of mocking him. And I bet you a lot of that does take place, that when you have your core group, but then there's the kind of outer circle and you're sort of the smiley friends, but you're not really real friends. I bet there's plenty of that goes on. Heck, there may have been folks making fun of me for getting somebody's name the next day. What's different, though, is I don't care. None of that matters anymore. The reality is I'm not the same guy I was 30 years ago, and neither are anybody else in that room. Something else that was kind of strange about the reunion was Clancy couldn't come. And I was thinking, other than like a quick Austin trip, I haven't traveled without Clancy. It felt really strange to be having all of these experiences, especially on Friday when I was there before my friends had gotten there. Duke was at its beautiful peak. This is that spectacular time of year where the temperature is perfect. Bluebird skies, the trees are coming out in green. There were these purple bushes. It was just gorgeous. And it felt weird not to have somebody to celebrate that with, to enjoy that with, to just experience that with. Being alone and having these positive experiences, and especially travel experiences, not sharing that with Clancy was kind of a weird thing. It was an absolutely great trip. Loved every bit of it. Taught me a lot about who I am, which I guess that's what reunions are about. And taught me a lot about what hasn't changed. There were still thousands of people cheering on a Duke game. And even though the three of us were quite older than the undergraduates that were there as part of this crowd, we still had a blast. That's what a lot of reunions are about, is just reminding you of what your youthful experiences were in a way to help cement some of the loyalty that, let's be honest, that the university, aka a business, is intending to cement with you. So everyone's back at the house. We're all back in the routine. What about y'all? If you've done a reunion, be it high school, be it college, especially in this current phase of life, what was that like? What were those experiences? Share some of those thoughts, if you would, on the Facebook group. It'd be great to hear your story and what you've learned out of a reunion that you've been a part of. Head over to the Loud Quiet Empty Nest Living. If you're not a member, click the link in the show notes below. And if you are a member, share your thoughts. And it'd be great to hear what you've got. Well, unlike normally when I get to look to the chair to my right and we close out an episode, I think I'll do it solo today. Thank y'all for listening to The Loud Quiet.